Let us talk about oil today, but not about gas prices. Let us talk about how oil shaped the world, how it led to wars, how it made some countries rich and left others poor. Think about it for a moment. You woke up in the morning, had breakfast, went to work, came home in the evening. Quite an ordinary day, is it not? But in every moment you lived, oil was there. From the process your breakfast food went through before reaching you, all the way to the end of the day. The car, bus, or metro you used to get to work. All of them move in a way that depends on oil somehow. In fact, the vast majority of the clothes you wear are made from synthetic fabric, and the raw material of synthetic fabric is also oil. In short, in this age, we have absolutely no chance of escaping oil. So oil is not just fuel. Oil is positioned right at the center of the modern life we live. In 1859 in Pennsylvania, there was a man named Edward Drake who one day dug into the ground and oil came out. That day was being recorded as the first day the entire world order would begin to change. Of course, nobody knew this at the time. Nobody could ever imagine that oil would cause both wealth and hunger. Even Drake himself could not fully understand what he had found. But that black liquid coming out of that well would transform over the decades into the world's most valuable resource. So why did it become so important? Because oil has an incredible energy density. 1 liter of gasoline contains approximately 8,000 calories of energy. If you were to meet this energy with human labor, it would mean a person working for weeks. This is why it became valuable. Oil meant providing labor cheaply and quickly, and the Industrial Revolution went crazy when it saw this. By the time we reached the First World War, something very important had been noticed. The side that had oil was winning the war. Britain understood this truth very early and quickly moved into the Middle East. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed, the British and French quickly divided those lands for this reason. The borders of countries like Iraq, Syria, and Jordan today were drawn by them. Why? Because there was oil under those lands, or they thought there might be. The same thing was seen even more clearly in the Second World War. When Germany attacked the Soviet Union, what was the target? Was it Moscow? Of course not. The real target was the oil fields in the Caucasus, Baku, Romania's oil refineries. Hitler knew very well that he could not win the war without oil. And he could not win, because he did not have the energy resources to sustain a war this large. In short, it came down to oil. Why did Japan attack Pearl Harbor? Let us talk about this a little too, because the US had applied an oil embargo on Japan, and Japan wanted to invade Southeast Asia to find alternative sources and neutralize this American embargo. The US, of course, would not allow this and would take action. So very few people may know this, but behind Pearl Harbor, there was also oil. After the war, the world order had completely changed, and oil had settled right at the very center of this order. In 1960, OPEC was founded. Oil-producing countries came together and made this decision. We own this resource, and we will determine its price. This was a very big decision that concerned the entire world, because until that day, the price of oil had been set by large Western companies, Aramco, Shell, BP. And this would never suit their interests, because they were producing, they were setting the price. OPEC struck a massive blow to these giant companies with this decision, and changed all the balances. The world would feel this very harshly in 1973. In the oil crisis of 1973, when war broke out between Israel and Arab countries, the US would support Israel. So what did the Arab countries in OPEC do? They responded by cutting oil exports to the US and other Western countries supporting Israel. The result was oil prices quadrupling. There are generations who still remember those years and know about the gas lines in America. Europe was no different. In fact, driving on Sundays was banned. Economies were in crisis, and trade almost came to a standstill. That crisis taught the world something. Oil was a very powerful weapon, and whoever held that weapon was the most powerful. This situation remains the same today. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, it is one of the countries with the world's largest oil reserves. And thanks to these reserves, Saudi Arabia has transformed from a small desert kingdom into a global power center. Its population is quite small relative to its land area, a country with a medium-sized army. But thanks to the power coming from oil, it has an important say everywhere in the world. The fact that Saudi Arabia sells its oil in dollars is a very important matter, because as long as oil is sold in dollars, the world will continue to need dollars. And this means a world that needs dollars will continue to need America too. This is why the US maintains very close relations with Saudi Arabia. Whatever happens with all those human rights violations and press freedom problems, Saudi Arabia is a country that needs to be kept close for America, because Saudi Arabia will continue to sell oil in dollars, and this will continue to keep America's global financial system standing. So what about Russia? Russia has enormous oil and natural gas reserves, and the enormous economic and strategic power these resources created gave Russia the opportunity to exert great pressure over Europe. For years, Europe was dependent on Russian gas to heat itself. Germany, France, Italy, all of them were dependent on Russian pipelines. When the Ukraine war started in 2022, Europe found itself in a very difficult position. And even though they wanted to punish Russia, the need for Russian gas in this situation created a great dilemma. This dilemma paralyzed Europe for months, and Russia used this dependence as leverage. In the end, Europe was forced to seek alternatives. They built LNG terminals and went the route of buying liquefied natural gas from America. Even though they also increased renewable energy investments, this transformation was advancing both very expensively and very slowly. So, what might happen in the future? Electric vehicles are spreading at a frightening speed. Battery technology is advancing. Solar and wind energy costs are falling. Many countries are moving toward a zero-carbon target by 2050. So, do all these developments mean dependence on oil will decrease? The answer is partly yes, but of course not completely, because oil is not only used as fuel. Plastic, medicine, fertilizer, cosmetics, textiles, and the raw material of many more industrial products depends on oil. Even if you drive an electric vehicle, the asphalt on the road you drive on is made from oil, and that will not change.